Well, welcome everybody. We're thrilled to have you this morning. My name is Marty Mascari. I am a contractor with the North Central Texas Council of Governments under the Area Agency on Aging and the Aging and Disability Resource Center, which are both programs under the North Central Texas COG. And we are blessed to have my cohort who works for the Area Agency on Aging, Isabel Maria, is here to talk to us today about how to respond and not react to our care partners with dementia. But before we get started, I just want to go over the CEU requirements for today's webinar. If you could advance it one slide, Isabel, that would be great. So I offer the complimentary CEUs for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors in the state of Texas. And we also offer certificates of attendance to anyone. If you have a different license in Texas, or you have a license outside of Texas, please feel free to go through the process and get a CEU certificate and submit it to your jurisdiction. Please know that there's no guarantees that they're going to take it, but I will tell you, I've had many people tell me they've been able to use them, and I've even had I've even had some of the jurisdictions reach out to me for additional information in order to decide whether it meets their threshold for what they're looking for their licensees to have learned. And from what I understand, they've all taken that. So that doesn't mean there's not other organizations that have turned it down. I don't know. I don't have any control of that, but I encourage you to do that if you're interested. Today's webinar is worth 1.5 hours of CEU credits. You must be on for the entire webinar and the Q&A up until 11:30 to qualify. And you must complete the Google survey that should pop up as you close out of Zoom today. It will ask you if you would like to take a short survey. If you just answer yes and go take and follow that to take the survey, that would be great. Some of you that join us on a regular basis, you'll notice a little bit of a difference in the survey today than we do most of the time. It's because of the topic. We have two different funding sources that are involved in putting on today's webinar. And so both of them, we have different requirements of reporting. So the post survey is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to, but it's still pretty brief. In addition to that, there's a pre-survey that Isabel's been putting the link in the chat for. If you could just briefly take that just right now, that would be wonderful. That helps us collect the pre and post information to see how much you've learned today. So if you don't get this post survey, if you don't get it when you close out of Zoom today, don't worry. It will be emailed to you in the follow-up email that will go out sometime this afternoon with that link in it. If you will have until August 1st to finish the survey, and then give us about a month to get the CEUs out to you and the certificates of attendance out to you. So that being said, Isabel Maria, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you for doing this today.
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think it's morning for everybody, no matter your time zone. Maybe I'm wrong, but so I wanted to say that I kind of like to be interactive. So if I ask questions, usually they're not rhetorical. I love to see people's responses in the chat, and I'll try to acknowledge some of them. So I just wanted to throw that out there so we can have a little bit of interaction. So what we're going to talk about today is the main thing is learning how to respond and not react. But in order to understand that, we still need to understand what dementia is and what's going on with the brain. I don't like to teach just this is what we do and this is how we do it. To me, it's very important to know this is why we do it this way. So we're going to start out with the brain and how it's impacted by dementia. And then we're going to talk about the common mistakes we make when we are providing care and how we can do better. So stressing out is actually one of them, blaming everything on the disease, especially behaviors, adapting our communication style or the lack thereof, and then leading with our task. And I'll explain that a little bit more and when we get there. So first, dementia. Dementia is different than a pseudodementia or delirium, but they have similar symptoms. Dementia is not a diagnosis, it's a set of symptoms. So there are things out there that look like dementia that aren't. But dementia is a disease that targets the brain. The brain is actually atrophying, it is shrinking. When someone makes it to the end of the disease, their brain actually shrinks 1/3 of its original size. It's progressive, it's only going one way, it's not going to improve, and there is no cure. There are medications out there. There's no really written or documented proof that it slows down, but medications tend to help with symptoms. But since the brain is dying and it is progressive, sometimes the medications work for a little while and then they stop working or they don't work at all. It is terminal, and all our lives are terminal. That just means if somebody is diagnosed with dementia, they're going to have it until the end of life. And it's skills that are lost. Typically, the skills, the way we develop them through life, they're kind of lost in the opposite direction. And most dementias happen gradually. A delirium or a pseudodementia can be reversible with treatment. And these things can be caused by urinary tract infections, especially for older population. When they get a UTI, they typically exhibit signs that look like dementia. It could be medication interactions or side effects. It could be depression. I had a friend whose mom, who she worried about her mom having dementia. And she talked to me and said, my mom's always been clean and organized and always going to her activities, but now she's not clean. She's not putting things where they go. I helped her with her calendar. She's not going to activities. She keeps saying she forgot. I think she has dementia. And I said, well, didn't your dad pass away about 7 months ago and they were married for over 40 years? Could it be it could be dementia, but could it be depression? So that's something to think about. Blood glucose levels can have symptoms that look like dementia, dehydration, and the loss of electrolytes. Um, Something else that can look like dementia that may or may not be reversible is stroke. But the difference with the delirium and the pseudodementias is that these symptoms of the pseudodementias typically have a sudden onset. What we need to keep in mind, though, is even with people with dementia, if they have sudden behavior differences that is not their normal at that time, it also warrants a medical checkup because it could be a delirium or one of those pseudodementias. So I wanted to show you what it looks like at the end of the disease. So this is an autopsied brain of two individuals who passed away around the same age, lived similar lifestyles. The difference is one person has a normal aging brain and the other person had Alzheimer's disease. So, if you want to put in the chat, what do you see in the brain with Alzheimer's disease that is different from the normal brain? You could throw it out in there in the chat if you'd like. Smaller, darker color. Yeah. Shrunken. Color, fatigued. Dark areas. Spaces between the creases are larger, right? Yeah. So our brain, it sends parts of the brain send signals to other parts of brain, send signals to the rest of our body. It all communicates, right? And it gets signals back and it interprets those signals. So when the brain starts separating like this, what do you think happens to that communication? It's just not there. It's not happening. There's things that aren't getting communicated. It's interrupted. Yeah. So here's another side view, like a side slice of a part of the brain. And you can see the healthy brain and then the brain with severe Alzheimer's disease, what's happening with the brain and why it's so difficult for the brain to function and process as it always has. So here is a PET scan. A PET scan measures activity in the brain. So red is most active, then it's orange, yellow, green, blue, purple is least active, okay? So you'll see that the arrows are pointing to the limbic system. The limbic system is in the center of the brain, and it's the first thing to develop while we are still in utero, because it's the things we don't think about, like temperature regulation, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, and all the things that our brain does to keep us alive that we don't think about. So I want you to notice that the first brain is a healthy brain. And we're going to talk about parts of the brain in a moment. Then the picture next to that is a brain with early Alzheimer's. And then the picture after that is late Alzheimer's. So I want you to notice the activity in the brain, the colors you see. Like I said, red is most active, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple's least active, okay? So this is the progression of the disease, and it is measurable. So there are different types of dementia, and that matters. Why does it matter? Because most people say, oh, dementia, it's Alzheimer's, it's memory problems. And that's not really the case. Dementia's global, and it's so much more than just memory problems. However, Alzheimer's is the one that we seem to notice memory problems first, right? They're forgetting things. They're not retaining things that are new information. And so we do relate it with that. But Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. It's not separate of dementia. Dementia itself is not a diagnosis. There's different kinds. But Lewy body dementia doesn't necessarily present with memory problems up front. Lewy body can present with things like hallucinations, visual or auditory, and it can be accompanied by Parkinson's. Parkinson's also falls under the dementia umbrella, and we know that Parkinson's doesn't present with memory problems. It presents with things like tremors. Frontal temporal dementia, that one doesn't present with memory problems. That one can present with personality changes or problems with speech, both comprehension and speech production. Vascular dementia are the mini strokes. And there's actually over 100 types of dementia. It's not a normal part of aging. It's not something that only affects an older generation. There's even childhood dementias out there. In drug and alcohol abuse dementias, I had a gentleman in memory care when I used to work in memory care that was 20 years younger than everybody else. And he started showing symptoms of dementia in his 40s because he was a bodybuilder and the sports enhancing drugs he used caused him to have dementia pretty young. So we're going to talk about vision now. Back here in the back part of your head is where the back part of your brain is the occipital lobe. So the occipital lobe processes what we see. And what we see is the number one of our 5 senses that we use and when we are interacting with the world around us, okay? So in normal aging, because our brains actually change throughout our whole lives, so what looks normal as we get older is after the age of 75, we lose about 20% of our peripheral vision. So if you want to do this with me, if you want to look straight ahead and wiggle your fingers, to the sides, you're not going to see your fingers, but you're going to notice movement, right? And if you do this, this represents that 20% of peripheral vision loss that we are going to experience after the age of 75. Now, early dementia, somebody may not even have a diagnosis yet, but already in early dementia, they get what scuba vision or tunnel vision. If you've ever been stressed out enough, you probably have experienced this tunnel vision where you just only see what's right in front of you. So to experience that, you can just put your hands around your face like a mask. And I want you to get pretty close to your computer and kind of look around and see how much you notice of the room around you, and then remove that scuba vision. And what you notice is that everything opens up visually because we don't have dementia. So when we're interacting with somebody with dementia, it's good to know these vision changes because it's going to help us in how we respond to them. When you're a little bit more in early mid-stage dementia, you have what's called binocular vision. So if you make O's with your eyes and put them over your eyes, like when you were a kid, pretending you have binoculars, I want you to look around and I want you to notice the limitations of your vision and what you can and cannot see and what you can and cannot focus on. So this is about early mid-stage. Then a little further along, then you have object recognition difficulties in dementia. So I can have this Sharpie right here, and on a good day, I'll know to take the lid off and write with it. On a not so good day, I might try to write with it without taking the lid off. I may take the lid off and turn it around the wrong way. And then on a really difficult day that my brain is just not processing what this is, I'm going to be really curious about it, and then I might make a mistake, and I might put it in my cup of water and try to drink from it. So that's object recognition difficulty. Monocular vision is if you close one eye or cover that eye and you put the monocle over the other one. If you want to do this and you want to be like arm length away from your computer and try to reach your computer to see how far away it is, you might notice you can't really tell the distance. So this is closer to the end of the disease, is that monocular vision, that loss of depth perception. This is when they're trying to pick up things from the patterned carpet because they think it's something on the ground. And then you have the limited vision at the end of the disease, where people cannot process multiple senses. So if they're singing, their eyes are going to be closed. Or if they're eating, their eyes are going to be closed. They're not going to be able to do many things. They're going to be sleeping a lot. So there's not much going on there in the vision. This is just the brain's ability to process our vision. This does not account for things like eye disease, macular degeneration. This is just talking about the brain's ability to process vision. Hearing and speech. So on the left, most dementias will lose what's on the left before they lose what's on the right. The right typically retains for most of the disease. So what does that mean? On the left, they're going to lose vocabulary, especially nouns first, because it's very specific to access nouns in the brain. So they might say, I need the thing from the place that opens, and you're thinking, what thing? What open what? A drawer, a door? Because they're losing nouns. Comprehension. So early in the disease, probably before they even have a diagnosis, they're already losing 1 in 4 words. So you'll say to someone with dementia, okay, we're going to wash our hands and then we're going to go eat. And then they say, okay. And then we go to do it and they don't know what's going on. So comprehension, they're losing 1 in 4 words very early on, and it just progresses after that. And then speech production, thinking of the words they want to say and physically saying the words. So that is lost on the left in most dementias early on. On the right, it retains. So the bad part about that is the foul language, sex talk, and racial slurs. That stays. But think about it. If you're walking and you stub your pinky toe really hard, what is the first word that you say? And don't tell me ouch. People have told me ouch. I don't believe it. So it kind of makes sense. It's something that's just automatic. Social chit chat. You'll go up to somebody with dementia and say, "How are you?" And they're like, "I'm fine. How are you?" "Oh, I'm good." "Well, you look nice today." "Well, thank you. So do you." And then you walk away and you think their dementia's not that bad. Or you might be taking care of somebody, but when somebody comes to visit or they go to the doctor's office, they're able to be on, is what we think. And then they think, "Oh, they're crazy. Their parent doesn't have dementia. I think they're fine." That's because they're really good at social chit chat for a while. And social chit chat doesn't require processing language. Rhythm of speech and intonation of voice. They may lose the words that we're saying, but they are listening to the intonation of our voice. So if we say, "Okay, we're going to wash our hands and then we're going to go eat," to them, it's logical to say, "Okay," even though they didn't get all of it. And we do that too. If we ask somebody something and they tell us and we say, "What?" because we didn't hear them right. And they tell us again and we say, "What?" And then they tell us again and then we're too embarrassed to say what. So we say, "Okay," kind of the same thing. So another good thing, music, poetry, prayer, proverbs, and rhythm. So people with dementia are really good at that. And music and poetry, prayer, proverbs is like kill two birds with one stone, two wrongs don't make a right. And rhythm, they retain that for most of the disease, and that's really good. Music is magic, let me tell you. Um, and then automatic autonomic movement. So what is that? If a fly flies close to your face, what do? Right? You don't think about it, you just do it. That's autonomic movement. If you're driving and the sun is in your face, what do? You put your sun visor down. You don't think about it. So when we're working with people with dementia, what we try to teach people is how do we greet people when we're meeting them for the first time? A handshake, right? The likelihood that you put your hand out to somebody with dementia and they take your hand is pretty good. So sensory motor skills, fine motor skills, there's going to be the loss of fine motor skills. Somewhere in the middle of the disease, they might have good days where they use their fork to eat. And then there's some days where they're just going to hold on to their fork, but be eating with their hands. Um, letting go. So I always like to mention this one because I've trained a lot of professional caregivers that have gotten into the situation where the person with dementia squeezes your hand. And then we're like, "Ow, ow, stop, stop." And they squeeze tighter and tighter. And we think they're being aggressive. But if you think of a newborn as for the first 2 months of their life, how do they keep their hands? They keep their hands like this, right? And if you carry them and they grab your hair or your earrings or your clothes, you literally have to pry their little fingers off because they to let go is a skill. And what are people with dementia losing? They're losing skill. So when they squeeze, maybe they're tense or maybe they just like the pressure. But when we panic and they squeeze tighter, what's the likelihood they're going to be able to squeeze? Let me see. Oh, somebody, Marty is looks like I'm not sure they're having issues watching the or seeing the images.
Let me see what's going on here. I'm seeing them, so I'm not sure. Um, yes, so, I think that that it must be something on someone's end because if everyone else is seeing them, it's probably not something I can fix on my end. But
Okay.
go ahead. I'm going to back off. If they want to reach out to me, I'll put my phone number, my email address and phone number in the chat, and then they can reach out to me.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Okay, so sensory motor, other things that the brain is processing differently. So there's going to be a point in middle of the disease that they're going to be sensory seeking or avoiding. And some of these things may not make sense to us. So the sensory seeking, they're going to go after things that they like, that they think are pretty, that feel good. They're your collectors. When you go to change their clothes, they have stuffed things in their shirt or in their pants or in their pockets, or they collected them in their room. Um, so they're going to be, and they might be using things in a way that doesn't make sense to us. So they might be holding a paper napkin and just tearing pieces off. Or I worked at a memory day center once where a lady would get a stack of paper napkins and a crayon, and she would draw a big X, and then she would put it to the side, and then she would do it to the next one, and then she would do it to the next one. It didn't make sense, right? But what do you think she did for a living? If anyone wants to take a guess. She was a teacher. Claims. I have friends that are claims adjusters. That's funny. But yeah, she was a teacher. She was grading papers. And then there's sensory avoiding, right? So maybe somebody would go out to the dining room and it would be fine. But now they're starting to be more anxious to go to the dining room and they want to avoid it. Well, their sense of hearing may not be processing properly anymore. So now the sound of the background music, people talking, the dishes, the utensils is really irritating to them. Or they may have showered just fine, but now the feeling of the water hitting their skin feels like needles and it hurts. So they want to avoid that. Um, Strong hand and eye reflex. So the first skill we develop as humans is hand-eye coordination. So a baby laying down under a mobile will bat at it, right? That's one of the first skills. And it's really good to know that that hand-eye coordination is one of the last ones to go in most dementias because what your eyes see, your hands want to touch, and what you touch, your eyes want to see. So if we have their hand in our hand, it's pretty good likelihood that we have their attention on us, which we need a lot of the time. Now, because they don't have impulse control, what their eyes see, their hands want to touch. I have a grandson who's 2. When he was a few months younger, and I would carry him, what do you think is the first thing he would notice on my face? Hit my glasses. So what happened next? He wanted to grab my glasses. So when there's no impulse control and that strong hand-eye coordination, those types of things can happen, but they can't help it because that's what's going on in their brain. Spatial awareness. So they're not going to have really good spatial awareness. They can get hurt. They can bump into things, especially when they have that depth perception problems. They don't have spatial awareness. And then that autonomic movement again. Smell and taste. So eventually in the disease, people may not be able to notice or understand smells. So sometimes we go and we visit our loved one that still lives alone with dementia, and you can tell they haven't bathed in a while, or you smell urine, and they think they're fine. And they tell you, I just took a shower yesterday. Well, you know they haven't, but their brain is not interpreting those smells like it used to. They don't notice them. Or even if they do notice them, they can't interpret in their brains what that means. That can also be dangerous because they might find a bottle of a chemical and they don't really know what it is, but it sure looks like the bottle of juice that I like. And it kind of looks like that color. So they might pour themselves, or they might eat spoiled food. Um, they might smell smoke, and that's danger. And that means you have to someone is asking, do they lose the sense of smell? It's possible. So it's possible. Obviously, sometimes we can lose our sense of smell because of a virus, because of other, polyps, things that are not dementia related. It is possible, but a lot of it has to do with the brain interpreting smells. So it may not be the loss of smell, it may just be the brain not being able to interpret what that smell is anymore. Olfactory hallucinations. Now, I still get olfactory hallucinations since I had COVID in 2020. I smell cigarette smoke randomly, any time of day, any place. But that can also still happen with somebody with dementia. Could result in significant weight loss. So if they don't care for food, if they can't taste the food, They might not want to. Someone said Parkinson's loses smell early. So yeah, you can lose your sense of smell. Um, and then smells may trigger emotional responses, which is true for all of us though, because when we smell, fresh cut grass, or we could smell the rain coming, it triggers emotional responses. So it can happen to people with dementia too. Yes, taste and smell can be affected together. If you can't smell, you can't taste things properly. So now we're going to talk to about other parts of the brain. So the hippocampus is part of that limbic system in the middle. So what does the hippocampus do? The hippocampus allows us to learn and to remember what we learned. When you have dementia, you start to be unable to learn new things and hold on to that information. It helps us find our way around. So it helps us get from point A to point B. And early in the disease, you might find some people with dementia, they start having a hard time. They could get lost in familiar places. But this could also be because they're not aware of the time of day. And if they are having issues with understanding the passage of time, they might think they're a lot younger than they are. So they could be in a house that they lived in for the last 20 years, but they think they're 30 years younger. And then they say, where's the bathroom? Why did they move the bathroom? Because in their mind, they're picturing that house that they lived in 30 years ago, not the one that they've lived in for the last 20 years. So this can start happening. They might be able to, sometime in the middle of the disease, they might be able to keep up with the bingo game that's going on, right? And then it's time to transition to lunch. Well, they need the help with that transition. And they don't even know it's lunchtime. They think it's still morning because they have lost that passage of time. And then the bingo game starts fading away. And they think, oh, we haven't played bingo yet. Are we going to play bingo? So this can happen. And this is ruled in the hippocampus. The amygdala. So in the limbic system, that's the part that develops first that we don't have to think about, the things that run our body that our brain does for us. And then the hippocampus is here in the back, and then in the front is the amygdala. So the amygdala is the part there that protects us, right? It's the fight, flight, fright, freeze reactions. And it processes our feelings from our experiences. So this is why they say even if you forget trauma, it's like stored in your nervous system and something may trigger it and you don't know why you're feeling anxious all of a sudden or scared all of a sudden. It's because your experiences that you've had in the past are stored in there and your brain remembers, even if you don't remember in your memory what happened. Prefrontal cortex. So that helps. This is right here. This is the last thing to develop in the human brain. It does not develop until after age 25. So this is why you might tell your teenager, that's it. I am turning off the internet. I have asked you 3 times to empty the dishwasher. And then they overreact. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not asking them to do anything unreasonable. Well, that's because they don't have this front part of the brain fully developed. And this part of the brain actually is what helps us manage the primitive fight, flight, fright, freeze responses. So there's also impaired logic and reasoning. So somebody with dementia might have moments where they don't have memory and they might find something out of place that they did, but they don't have memory of it. So then their brain starts to make things up and say, well, somebody must have broken in my house and put this there. They're unable to start tasks. Okay, so this part of the brain also helps us start a task, do that task in order, finish that task, and then move on to something else. So a person that has this part of the brain impaired is going to have difficulties staying on task. Or you could be like me with ADHD. I feel like I have problems with this. Unable to think of options and make a choice. So think of the consequences and be able to make good decisions. Lack of self-awareness. So that's why the person with dementia doesn't know they have dementia. They are not able to see that in themselves. Maybe really, really early on in the disease, um, or maybe certain medications can make them aware just enough to know that there's something wrong. But for the most part, they're not self-aware in that way. And then an ability to see things from another perspective. So you're telling them, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired of you getting up in the middle of the night. I have to get up with you." And they don't understand that. They can't see it from your perspective, and they're not doing it on purpose. So, what are some of the common mistakes? So, we're going to talk about stressing out, blaming the disease. We're going to talk about the adapting of communication, and then leading with our tasks. So, when I talk about reacting, I talk about stress. Stress equals cortisol production. Cortisol is a chemical that gets released when we're stressed out. And then what happens with that is that we go to our primitive reactions. So, that middle part of our brain that I talked about, the amygdala that has the flight, fight, fright, freeze reactions. We, when we get older, after age 25, and as we get older and we develop the frontal lobe part of the brain, well, this part helps us manage that primitive reactions, right? That's why, if somebody's a professional caregiver and you're taking care of somebody and there's an emergency, well, you can't panic. You have to be able to keep your composure. Or if you're working with somebody or taking care of somebody with dementia and they snap at you, well, it's the disease. You probably shouldn't snap back. But if we allow the stress that occur, then we're not going to be able to control that primitive part and we're going to go to it. We are going to panic. We are going to snap back. So our stress, we are sharing our stress with them when we allow this to happen. And I know it's not easy, especially family caregivers. I feel like it's way more challenging when you're a family caregiver because you have a history with this person, right? Than it is maybe for professional caregivers. But stress is probably the number one way in which we make things more difficult because we're reacting. We're not using this front part of our brain. When that cortisol is released, it negatively impacts our brain, and we're not able to use our whole brain. And if our brain is impacted by the stress and the cortisol, and then we're sharing that stress with the person with dementia who has a brain with a disease, what do you think it does for their brain? So, the quickest way in the moment to lower that cortisol in our system is deep breathing. The deep breathing means that we'll have cortisol reduction and we'll be able to respond. Now, when I give this advice to people, people tell me, yeah, I've tried that. It doesn't work. It's probably not going to work very well the first few times you try it. It takes practice. And not only does it take practice, it takes consistent practice for it to become a habit. And what I mean by that is when you are getting stressed out for a good while, you're going to have to tell yourself to breathe. You're going to have to remind yourself, breathe. And but after really 6 to 8 weeks, if you're really consistent about it, you're going to find it getting easier and easier. And after like those 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to start getting stressed out and you're going to find yourself breathing without having to tell yourself because now you created a habit. So deep breathing will help lower that cortisol. And when we lower that cortisol, we keep this front part of our brain engaged, the part that manages the primitive part. So we don't panic and we don't snap back at the person. So what I want to talk about is a real deep breath is all the way down in the lungs, and your chest is actually not moving all that much. It shouldn't be going up and down. It's your abdomen that should be expanding and um when you take a really deep breath inside of your lungs. So even though I can't see you, we're going to practice 3 real deep breaths, okay? We're going to take 3 deep breaths all the way down, expanding our abdomen and lower that stress. So let's go. Okay, don't fall asleep on me now. But those deep breaths will help us reduce that cortisol in the moment. It just takes practice and it takes the intention of us telling ourselves when we get in that stressful situation, breathe. So, another mistake that we make as caregivers is we blame everything on the disease. Oh, they're sundowning. They're agitated, they're combative, they're anxious, they're aggressive, they're lying. We blame everything on the disease. I think we forget, or even in our whole industry, when somebody gets diagnosed with dementia, they kind of get dehumanized. And when we dehumanize people, we don't see them like us. And we start blaming the disease on all of these things. But what we have to learn and understand is behaviors are a form of communication. Okay. So they could be an unmet need intake. Somebody with dementia has, they haven't eaten in like 5 hours and they've been walking around a lot and you want to get them to eat. Unfortunately, there's a part of their brain, of the sensory motor part of their brain, that's not interpreting their empty stomach anymore. So they don't realize they have an empty stomach. Their brain's not interpreting that feeling. So they don't know what to do about it. And then we start seeing behaviors and they're really cranky and mean. And we think, oh my gosh, it's a dementia. They're just getting meaner. Well, is it the dementia or do they have low blood sugar and they're hangry? And if we give them something to eat, then their mood improves. Because I know I get hangry. Energy use. So, um, oh, it's nighttime and they're not sleeping. It's sundowning. They're sundowning. They just refuse to sleep. Well, what did they do during the day? Did you think that they didn't want to do anything, so you just sat them in front of the TV for 4 or 5 hours, and now they don't want to go to sleep at night? The reason they didn't do anything is because that part of their brain that helps them initiate a task is not working right. If we don't help them initiate, they can't initiate on their own. But what we think is, oh, what they don't want to do anything. So I'm just going to sit them in front of the TV. And then nighttime comes and we want them to go to sleep. They haven't expended any energy. So they're not going to go to sleep. Output. So let's say using the bathroom, they are uncomfortable because they're constipated, but they also don't recognize that that's what the discomfort is. We would recognize our discomfort and we would do something to help ourselves with that discomfort, but their brain is not interpreting what that discomfort is. They just are uncomfortable. And you start seeing strange behaviors that we blame on the disease, but it's really maybe they're constipated. And then same for comfort and pain management. So comfort is not just being in the right temperature, maybe we think it's hot, but they think it's cold. They need a blanket, but it's also comfort with people, their surroundings, emotional, spiritual comfort. And then there's pain management. We are helping somebody change their shirts and it's fine, but as the day progresses, when we go to help them change their shirt, they try to punch us. Well, then we learn, wait, they have arthritis pretty bad, especially in their shoulder, and but they don't recognize it. They can't say, "Hey, my shoulder hurts. I need, some pain medicine." So maybe talking to the doctor about putting them on just regular pain medicine just to see how it goes, we find that they don't try to punch us anymore when we change their shirt later on in the day. And then there's a need for change. Do we need to change their environment? Uh, is something different in their environment? So, for example, maybe the room that they're in with the blinds open is fine, but then you notice later in the day that they're anxious in that room and they just don't want to be there and they want to leave that room. And we're thinking, oh, um, sundowning? Is it sundowning? We have to play detective. It's not easy. We have to play detective. But we find that, oh, the sun movement shifts. And now there's this shadow coming from the blinds. And the person is scared because they don't know what that is. Their brain doesn't interpret what they're seeing, and that's scary to them. So when we find that we just keep the blinds closed and maybe the lights on, that we don't get that behavior that we were seeing. Activity, are they active enough? Are we giving them purpose? It doesn't even really matter if they do things properly. Let's say help you clean or fold laundry or whatever the case may be, just giving them purpose. Hey, can you help me with this? That can help. Everybody needs purpose. And then people. Maybe they're okay around certain people. Maybe they're okay around certain people for a certain amount of time. Maybe those people need a break because they've been pretty patient and pretty good all day, but now they're wearing thin and now that cortisol is starting to develop, and now they're sharing that cortisol with the person with dementia, and then it's not good. Maybe that person needs a break and someone else to step in and take over. So really, behaviors are a form of communication. Um, we also, what the difference is that the person with dementia's brain is not interpreting what those needs are or what is scaring them. And then if you cannot recognize these things, how are you going to help yourself? That's why I say we have to be the ones that are the detectives and try to figure out, something's going on here. Could it be that because they haven't eaten, they have low blood sugar? Could it be that they're not sleeping because they weren't active enough during the day? So those are just questions we have to ask ourselves. So adapting or not adapting our communication style. So we talked about changes that are happening in the brain. So for example, the vision loss, right? Or the processing. If they're in this binocular vision and we're approaching them from the side or behind, what kind of reaction are we going to get from them? Not introducing ourselves. So people with dementia, they're gonna start forgetting who we are. And if we come up to them and we plan on doing intimate things with them, like changing their clothes or touching them, or you know, our intention is to help, but if we didn't introduce ourselves and they don't exactly know who we are, that could be kind of scary. Quizzing them. Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you know who I am? Who am I? Who likes to feel stupid? Nobody likes to feel stupid. So if you go in quizzing them, who am I? Or do you remember we talked about this? You remember I told you that you need to take your medicine because at the time they told you, yeah, I'll take my medicine. And then the next day they didn't take their medicine. So people don't like to be talked down to or be made to feel stupid. And it's not their fault that they're not remembering these things. They have a disease. Using verbal communication only. Remember, I said early in the disease, they're already losing 1 in 4 words. They might not even have a diagnosis yet. However, as the disease progresses and we are still trying to communicate with them in the way that they were able to communicate before, in the way that we're able to communicate. Not mindful how we look and sound. So I might not be mad, I might just be tired, but if I come in and I'm like, all right, come on, let's go. How will someone with dementia who's not able to get all the words that I'm saying interpret what I just said? What? What did she say? What? Don't tell me what to do. Or, oh, she looks mad. Did I do something wrong? All of this that we're talking about is cortisol inducing. They're going to be stressed. Their brains that already have dementia are now also being impacted by cortisol. Putting our hands on them without asking permission. So we might be well intentioned. You look cold, and then we want to like button their sweater or zip it up, but we just went right up to them and put our hands on them. Um, if you put these binoculars on again, what do you think happens when I'm looking at you and all of a sudden I feel things on me? That's not a good thing. And then leading with a task, which we're going to talk about later, but I wanted to put that in there. When we lead with a task, we're we need to adapt that communication style too. But we're going to go deeper into that one. So how do we adapt our communication style? So we want to approach in their visual field. So what is their visual field? Right in front of them. It's very limited, right? If this happens in memory care, right? We put a plate of food down in front of somebody with dementia and they don't eat. but then they see their neighbor's food in front of them, the person sitting in front of them, and they start eating that food. And then we think, oh my gosh, why are they doing that? I can't believe why do they keep bothering them? Well, why do you think they're eating their neighbor's food in front of them? I mean, put your binoculars on and think of a plate of food down in front of you. What can you see? What you see is your neighbor's food. And I said it's time to eat, and you're hungry, and that's what you're doing. You're eating. But you didn't see the food that I put in front of you. Now, maybe if I would have brought the food up to your eye level and said, hey, it's time to eat, and then put it down slowly, even a little bit further out, you're able to see it better and you're able to eat. Introduce yourself. Always introduce yourself when you're working with somebody with dementia, or even if it's a family member that's starting to forget who you are. Because you don't want them to feel stupid, because we'll be really friendly with them and they'll smile back, but they're thinking, oh my gosh, they knew me. I don't know them. I feel so stupid. I should know who they are. And we don't want to have cortisol running through their system just in our introduction. So when we approach, let me go back to approaching in the visual field. We also don't want to stay right here. This is called confrontational stance. I've even had trained caregivers who used to be corrections officers, and they are trained not to stand in confrontational stance. Because if you're in confrontational stance and you have that limited vision, that's the only thing you see is that person standing in front of you. Cortisol, stress, right? So when you approach the person in their visual field, you want to step to the side so that they can still see you, but they also see they have an escape route if they want one, right? They still see some of the room. They don't see just us in front of them. Um, Make a positive connection. When you go up to somebody with dementia and you approach in their visual field and you stand to the side and you introduce yourself, hi, I'm Isabel. You want to make a positive connection. Oh, I love your glasses. They're so nice. Get permission before you touch somebody or getting in their personal space. That's really important because who likes someone getting in their personal space? Nobody. And how do you get that permission? Well, remember I talked about that automatic autonomic movement? If I go in for a handshake with somebody with dementia and they take my hand, that's permission to get in their personal space. Now I could get closer. Now I can touch them. Now I can help them. Using visuals or gestures. So going back to my example, okay, we're going to go wash our hands and then we're going to go eat. And they say, okay, and we go to do it and they don't know what we're doing. How can I improve on that communication? Because their brain is not getting all the words and not making a connection. What if I said, okay, we're going to wash our hands and stop there? Because what does this mean? This means let's go. We're going to wash our hands. Come follow me. We wash our hands. Then we're done washing our hands and I say, all right, we're going to go eat. So you want to use visuals or gestures. You want to mind your intonation, your facial expressions, and your body language. So for whatever reason, a person with dementia, they do forget the experiences. They forget the facts. What they don't forget is the emotion. And if you have enough interaction with somebody with dementia, even if they forget who you are, they're going to attach emotion to you. So when I worked in memory care and I went in there the first day, they all looked at me like, hmm, hmm. They didn't really have an opinion of me. Now give me weeks working there, having good, positive interactions with them. And now I walk in. Still don't know my name. Still don't know why I'm there. Still, they don't even remember that I was there an hour ago. But now when they see me walk in, they say, yay, it's you. Yay. They're happy to see me. The opposite is also true. Um, if they have enough negative interactions with someone, they're going to forget those interactions, but they're going to see that person coming and cortisol, stress right away. Oh no, here she comes. And if you ever worked in memory care or you've been around anyone with dementia, you probably have heard that towards some people, like, oh no, oh boy, there she is. So it matters. It matters how we interact with somebody with dementia. We think it doesn't because we're like, whatever, I'll walk away and in 2 minutes come back and they'll forget what happened. Yeah, that's true. They will forget what happened, but the emotions don't go away. Um, so ask a this or that question. Oh, so I think I missed in the slide before. Don't ask, or maybe I do, but okay, don't ask yes or no questions unless no is an appropriate response. Do you want a popsicle? No. Okay, they don't have to have a popsicle. Do you want to go to the bathroom? No. Do you want to take a shower? No. Do you want to eat? No. So instead, we want to try to ask this or that questions, right? We also don't want to ask open-ended questions. What do you want to eat? If I ask you right now, okay, give me your top 5 favorite actors, and you think about it. Most people can name one, maybe two, starts to fade. Some people maybe three, and then it's like you don't know any actor in the world. That's kind of the same thing when you ask someone with dementia, what do you want to eat? They've had a lot to eat throughout their whole lives and they have difficulties processing. So if you say, what do you want to eat? Their mind goes blank and they say, I'm not hungry, or I don't know. If you try asking a this or that, hey, without saying the yes or no question, hey, it's time to eat. Do you want soup or do you want a sandwich? Of course, only offer things you have. Might help out better. Hey, I have the water at the right temperature, just how you like it. Do you want to use the blue towel or the red towel? Um, you know, kind of having them feel like they have a choice and independence of choice. And then you want to lead with connection. Like I said, making a positive connection and leading with connection. We'll talk more with leading with connection next because that has to do with approaching them with our task first, which is another mistake that we make as caregivers. What does leading with our task mean? You need to take your medicine. It's time to take a shower. Let's go to the bathroom. We need to change your clothes. Sit down, time to eat. Let's go. We have to go to the doctor. So, who likes being told what to do all the time? Nobody likes being told what to do all the time. But sometimes, whether we're family caregivers or professional caregivers, we got tasks we need to do. We need things we need to do. We're worried about taking care of our person. But nobody likes being told what to do. What can we do instead? We want to lead with connection first. First, we want to approach in their visual field, like we talked about before. We want to be warm and friendly. We want to get permission to be in their personal space. Hey, and then when they grab our hand, that's our permission, right? Connect with a compliment or acknowledge that they're good at something. Invite them to do something that they enjoy or are good at, or invite them to help you with a task they can still do. So that's the giving them purpose type of thing, right? So somebody's sitting down, and I know they haven't gone to the bathroom in like 4 hours, and they had juice and water and coffee, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're kind of starting to see them get a little antsy. Their brain is not interpreting that their bladder's full and they need to go empty it. They don't know what to do about it. They're just uncomfortable and fidgety. And you think, oh my gosh, I need to get them in the bathroom. Hey, come on, let's go to the bathroom. Well, they're adults. They don't forget they're adults. They're not kids. And they especially don't want their adult kids telling them what to do, right? Or because their brain is not interpreting that they have a full bladder, they think, no, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the bathroom. Instead, if you go up to them, hey, hey, it's me, Isabel. Hey, how's it going? Wow, your glasses are so cute. Are they new? I like them. You know what? You really like to sort the playing cards, and somebody messed up all the playing cards. I need your help. I need your help. Let's go to the game room and let's sort the playing cards. Yeah? Okay, come on. That's how we get them to stand up. That's our goal. Our goal is to get them to stand up. We're not going to get them to stand up by saying, "Come on, you have to go to the bathroom. You haven't gone to the bath. You had so much to drink. Come on." No, we kind of lead with the connection first, right? So on our way to the game room, we say, hey, you know what? On our way there, let's stop in the restroom before we go sit down again. And then we take them to the restroom. So that's just one strategy, right, that we can use when we are trying to complete a task with somebody dementia without leading with that task, without telling them, constantly approaching them with telling them what to do first. We want to approach them and connect with them first, and then get them to do the things that we know that they need to do, that they might not be aware of, that they need to do these things. So I want to show you a video. Oop, hold on. I want to show you a video that's kind of putting together all of the things that I talked about today. And let's see. I kind of wanted to make sure. Oh, Marty, I might need
Yeah,
help with, oops,
yes.
hold on.
If
I know
once
that I had this issue last time.
once you
I
do
have
it, if you go to the eclipse to the
share sound.
ellipses and say share computer sound.
Ah, perfect. Thank you. I
No
had
problem.
last time. Let's see, you guys, good? People can hear it?
I'm going to walk
Yes,
us through
we got
the
it.
positive
Oops, sorry about that.
physical approach steps for a person in mid-state dementia. Teepa. Hey.
Hey. Well, hi,
Hi. It's Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Yeah. And you are?
I'm Teepa.
Yeah, you're Teepa.
Yeah, that's pretty.
My necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you have a necklace too. Very pretty. Matches your shirt.
Oh, well, it
Yeah.
matches this shirt.
Yeah, it does match
Yeah.
that shirt.
You've got glasses too.
I do have glasses, and you too.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I do.
Yes, you do. So, what you may have noticed is that I first connected visually at approximately 6 feet out with my hand by my face, stationary, my right hand, so that I can accommodate Teepa's binocular vision. I then connected auditorily by saying hi, and I stated my name and said, and you are. Of course, I did also get her attention by saying her name, hey, Teepa, so that I didn't surprise her. Next, I reached my hand out in a typical handshake fashion to ask permission to move forward. Teepa giving her permission by going into a traditional handshake tells me it's okay for me to move closer. I transitioned to hand under hand and shifted to the side in a more supportive stance. We then had a conversation. Actually, Teepa noticed my necklace. Noticed that I pointed to my necklace and said, and you have one too. I did not touch her necklace, however. We then had that conversation, and then she picked out something on me, our glasses. So that gave us something to connect over. So we're going to continue to this next step. So Teepa,
Yeah.
I could use your help.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
What do you need?
I'm going to, in the kitchen.
In the
Let's
kitchen.
go in the kitchen.
Okay.
I'll show you.
Something in the kitchen?
Something in the kitchen.
Okay,
So let's
well,
go.
Let's go.
We're going to go that way.
Okay.
So what I did was I asked her for help. That was my positive action starter. And I got her going in the direction of where she could help me, using, again, a visual cue to point that addressed her, fell within her visual field, which is likely binocular. And we're off.
We're off.
We're off. Let's go.
I have someone that says they weren't able to hear it. I'm so sorry about that. I think Marty will share this presentation after.
I will. We'll be,
Yeah.
we are recording this. It'll be probably a week or so. In fact, probably a couple of weeks, but we'll get the recording out to you all. And then I'll also include the link. If you'll send me the link to this video,
Okay.
Isabel, I'll include that link in the follow-up email as well.
Okay. That works. So in this video, you kind of saw a little bit of everything put together as far as approaching and communicating, connecting with somebody living with dementia. And, I like this video because it kind of culminates everything that we discussed on responding to somebody with dementia, not reacting to them, and being able to really engage them. Okay, I have some questions and we will address questions actually. We're actually done a little bit ahead of schedule as far as the presentation goes. I guess I talked really, really fast, but that gives us more time for Q&A. But in the meantime, this is my contact information. The QR code will take you to the area, North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging website. And then there's my email and my phone number. If you have any in the future after this presentation, if you have questions about the CEUs or the link to the YouTube video when they post it, that should be directed towards Marty. But if you have any other questions related to dementia care or the Area Agency on Aging, what is tempest snow in the short video? Oh, okay. Yeah, I will address that in a second. But yeah, so this is just the contact information. So I guess I can go to the Q&A, and I guess there's a special spot for Q&A, right?
Yeah, there is, and I think there's probably some questions in the chat as well.
There
I
is,
should have
yeah.
I should have asked them originally to put the questions in the Q&A, and I apologize I didn't do that.
That's okay.
But we've got quite a bit of time. So if you go ahead and ask your questions, but at about 25 minutes after the hour, if I could go back over the CEU stuff, that would be great.
Perfect. Sounds good. Okay. So somebody's asking, how do we get them to eat? I mean, there is no perfect way to do things. It depends how we approach it. It depends if they, like I said, we have to play detective. Sometimes if we bring them a plate of food and say, here you go, here's your food. Well, you know, like I mentioned before, who likes being told what to do? Hey, it's time to eat. Do you want a soup or do you want sandwich? Would playing music help? What does, are you using a white plastic fork that you just put on a white napkin and a white plate, and they're having visual problems being able to see the utensils they're supposed to use? Or is the food similar to the color of the plate and they're having difficulties seeing the food on the plate? There's so many things to play detective with. Are we stressing out about it? So then they're stressing out about it, and so they're not going to eat. There is no one answer. It takes us playing detective and figuring out, let me try this strategy. Let me see if this works. And, oh, that didn't work. Okay, how can I adapt this strategy? What can I try different and see if that works? So someone says when you approach someone and they become verbally aggressive. So I'll tell you a story. When I have trained high school students that are going to graduate to be CNAs, and when they told me a story when they worked in memory care, there was a gentleman that they would go into his room to get him up for the day, and he was just mean and verbally aggressive and grouchy. And the people that worked there were like, "Oh, why are you so grouchy? Come on, it's a beautiful day," and it would just make him madder. So when the students told me the story, I said, well, what's wrong with him being grouchy? Aren't you grouchy sometimes? Isn't it okay to be, if you were in a bad mood and someone came up to you and say, what's wrong with you? Come get over it. It's not that big a deal. How would you feel? So instead, what if they started coming into his room and acknowledging and validating his feelings. I am so sorry. Yeah. Oh, this is so hard for you. I can see why you're upset. What if they tried that instead? When interacting with somebody, validating their feelings. We may not understand why they're feeling that way, and we may never understand why they're feeling that way. But it is how they're feeling, and you're not going to reorient a person with dementia to our reality. You're just gonna end up being frustrated. So I guess, without knowing details of the situation, how is that person being approached? Are they being condescended to? Are they, or are they being um, validated for how they're feeling? And because I did have a one time when a man was being aggressive and the other caregivers were trying to stop. He thought one of the ladies in the memory day center was his mom, and she was scared because he wanted to be around her, and that other people were trying to get him away. No, that's not your mom. Come on, let's go. And it was escalating and escalating. And then I came in, um, kind of did the positive physical approach, but it was an escalating situation. So it was kind of like a shift of strategy in there. But I started saying, "You look like you're really mad." He said, "I am really mad." I'm like, "I am so sorry. What's going on?" He's like, "They're trying to take me away from my mom." I'm like, wow, that's not good. Oh, I don't like that. You want to talk to me about it? Tell me what's going on. He's like, "Yeah, I want to talk to you about it and tell you what's going on." And by then I had taken him out of the room and around the corner and away from the person having this conversation. But instead of telling him, no, 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 then escalating the situation, I just validated how he was feeling and I validated his experience, even though his experience wasn't reality. Somebody asked, what is Tempe Snow? It's Teepa, Teepa Snow. She is an occupational therapist that has developed this positive approach to care. So I've been certified through Positive Approach to Care since 2019 as a trainer and as a consultant. And so she has these skills and these strategies she's developed throughout her career in the industry. And she was the person playing the person with dementia. She actually does a really good job playing a person with dementia. So she was the person playing the person with dementia. And she's pretty brilliant in our industry. And I encourage you to go to teepasnow.com and check out what she has there for as in regard to dementia care.
We'll include,
Somebody, go ahead.
that link will be we actually have that link on all of the webinars we do with the James L. West Center. We included in the follow-up. I'll include Teepa Snow's link in the follow-up as well.
Okay. Somebody said that I feel like, hold on. Something about dehydration. Oh, okay, UTI. Mom has frequent UTIs or dehydration. So yeah, so the UTIs, even with somebody with dementia, can cause behavior changes, sudden behavior changes that aren't their normal. It is challenging. We try different methods. There's those little like candy drops that are hydration candy for people with dementia. I'm not sure what they're jelly something. I'm not sure. I know if you Google it, you'll find it. What I used to do when I worked in memory care was I would cheers with them with water, and it's kind of like that autonomic movement, right? You cheers and you take a sip. So I would do things like that with them, or just maybe serving it in a different kind of cup that they like better. Any kind of strategy to try to get them to consume more fluid. Yeah, you might want to look at those jelly candies that are hydration candies for people with dementia. Somebody said, I feel like we're babying them if we try to approach them in the video. So you got to play it by ear, right? If somebody is earlier in the disease and we approach them like that, they might be like, I'm not stupid. Or let me give you this example. So you know that somebody's having difficulties understanding what we're saying. So we use gestures. We say, okay, we're going to wash our hands and then we're going to eat. And they're like, I'm not stupid. I know what that means. You don't have to do that. I'm not a baby. And you say, I am so sorry. You're right. You are not a baby. that's just me. I've just gotten used to doing that. It has nothing to do with you. But you still do it because you know that there's going to be a day that they're not having a good day, that they need that. So people can fluctuate a little bit throughout the disease, even though it's progressive and going in one direction. Someday, like we're human. So on those days that are not so good, they might need that extra communication of those gestures. On the days that they're doing pretty good, they might take offense to it. So we apologize. I am so sorry. Yeah, you're right. You know, I'm doing that because I'm used to doing that, but it has nothing to do with you. I don't think you're a baby. You're not a baby. Um, let's see. Somebody has a question for you in the Q&A, Marty, as far as being able to access some of the Survey Monkey and such.
Okay, hold on just a second. Recording the last presentation. Yeah, Christopher, I got your email. I have been dealing with people trying to get in and everything. I'll get back with you on that by email. I saw it in the chat. If you would
Okay.
email me, but if not, I'll go back and find what webinar it was. We don't normally reopen any of the questionnaires just because of the numbers. It's just too beyond my ability as a one-person operation to start working one-on-one with issues. But I'll be happy to talk to you about that, Christopher.
Even if you didn't take the post Survey Monkey, you can take the pre-Survey Monkey when Marty sends the post, you can take that one.
Yeah,
It would
I
still be
think
helpful.
I think he's referring to one that we did with James L. West.
Oh,
and
okay.
and so I need to get back with him separately on that. Yeah.
Somebody is asking, my husband's in a wheelchair, and you would like him to understand that you have to run up. You can't be there all the time. You have other things to take care of. So this front part of the brain is the last one to develop, right? In human brains. And in most dementias, it's the first thing to go. And one thing this part of the brain houses is the ability to see things from another person's perspective. That's just not there. So that is a challenge. That poses a challenge. Somebody with dementia is not going to be able to see it from your perspective. There's no way to get them to really understand it. So, you know, you can look into resources for respite care. It can be expensive if someone has to pay out of pocket. You can contact us if you live in or your local area agency on aging. We serve 14 counties that surround Dallas and Tarrant County here in Texas. But if you're not in our area, you can see because there is some temporary in-home assistance that can be made, but yeah, your husband doesn't want a babysitter. It could be a friend. It could be a friend. You know, one of the things that I noticed, because I've also am a case manager with caregivers, is they need help and people offer them help, but they don't give people specifics or they feel bad. And so they don't actually take the help. Take the help. Take the help. Think about a time in your life where you have helped somebody that they were not able to reciprocate and give back to you, but you wanted to help anyways. Well, maybe now it's your turn to get that help and accept that help. And if somebody says, I want to help, what can I do? Give them specifics. People will offer help because they want to help, but they honestly do not know what to do to help. So give them specifics. Have a friend sit with him, have lunch with him, take a walk with them, not a babysitter. It depends how you approach it. And it is challenging that unfortunately that person with dementia can't see the struggle and what you're going through and see things from your perspective. Somebody says, do you see someone that has dementia that gets a UTI, increases their confusion, but once it's treated, then they go back to being how they were? Yeah, that's typical. So that's a lot of things. That's why I mentioned if in somebody that doesn't have dementia, it can look like dementia, right? They can be confused, they can be paranoid, they can be combative, and it happens one day to the next. Well, people with dementia are still human, so they're still going to experience things like UTIs, medication interactions. And so somebody with dementia that's not verbal all of a sudden might start moaning one day. And if we keep blaming the moaning on the dementia and say, oh, that's their new dementia thing, they might die of sepsis, because what it was is that they had a UTI, and that was the best way they could do in communicating their discomfort. So anytime you see any sudden behavior changes, increase in confusion, increase or sudden incontinence that they didn't have previously, or anything like that, even in a person with dementia, it warrants a medical checkup to make sure that it's not something else.
It's that time. Let me go over the CEU stuff if I
Sure.
could. If you could move the slide one more time. And
Oh, yeah.
when you're doing that, I'm going to say, for those of you that have not dealt with dementia before or are somewhat new at it, it is really amazing how a UTI can mask itself as dementia, and how quickly it can be reversed once a UTI is taken care of. And for those of you, when that happened to me years ago for the first time, I was absolutely amazed at how quickly it cleared up and how convinced we were that the dementia had progressed substantially. So it is, the UTI is a huge factor. The other thing I want to say, just on top of what Isabel said, is that if you're not the person taking care of someone right now, and you have time, be the one that's willing to help them and give other people a break, because you never know when the time's going to come back around where you're going to need to take advantage of it on your end and accept people's help. So that works both ways. So I just wanted to throw that out. So for today we're providing complimentary CEUs for licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors in the state of Texas. We're also providing certificates of attendance, and they're all available for anyone who attends the entire webinar. The rules are the same. So if you have a different license in Texas, or you have a license outside of Texas, feel free to go through the process and get the certificates that we offer and submit them to your jurisdiction who's over the licensing that you're working on, and see if they'll take them. I've had many people tell me they've been able to use them, but just so you know, we are only set up for these two, so there's no guarantee. And I say that both for people in Texas or people outside of Texas. Today's webinar is worth 1.5 hours of CEU credits. You must attend to the entire webinar and stay on until 11:30, and we're just about there. You must complete the Google evaluation survey. The Google evaluation survey should pop up as you close out of Zoom today. And how that happens is it should ask you if you would like to take a short survey. And if you offer to do that, if you go in and do that, you will complete our Google survey. For those of you that have attended other webinars, it's a little bit different, the survey today, than you're used to, because we've added a section for a survey that Isabel has to have for funding that they get to do this as well, even though we both work for the same organization. So please complete that survey. If you don't get it as you close out of Zoom today, you will get the link in a follow-up email after today's webinar. The survey will be open until 8/1. And then if you'll give us until 9/1 to get certificates out to you, we would appreciate it. If you don't get it by 9/1, you're more than welcome to email me, please, and ask, because there are times when there are glitches. The system works pretty well, but there's times when there are glitches, or there's times when there are reasons why that it didn't issue you a survey, um, and I can at least get down to that for you. So I'm gonna, Isabel, I don't know how much time you have, but I'm gonna turn it back over to you for
Sure.
questions. If
Sure. I mean, if anybody wants to stay on because I haven't answered their question yet, I was getting to one about what happens when they don't perform self-care anymore, like cut their toenails. I guess I would think, are they aware? They may not be aware. How are we approaching it? Oh my gosh, you have to cut your nails. Look how long they are, as opposed to try a different strategy. If they can still leave the home, will they go get a pedicure with you together? Like not like something that's a task, but something that's fun to do together. Or can you get a traveling pedicurist or a traveling podiatrist to come to the home? I believe Medicare should cover nail trimming every 60 days. So sometimes it's our strategy when we think about it and they don't see a problem with it. We see a problem with it. We're not going to change their mind, but can we approach it in a different way that's more enjoyable, pleasant, something that doesn't seem like a chore that, oh, we're going to do this together. And that's just without knowing details of the whole situation. Those are just some ideas. Somebody asked about creatine. Is it good for reducing plaque buildup in the brain? I wouldn't know an answer to that. That would be a question for a doctor. I don't have any knowledge about drugs or medication and how they affect the brain or don't affect the brain. I mean, there is I'm sure there's things out there, but there's nothing like speaking to a neurologist or a primary care physician or a geriatrician about things like that. The video will be put on YouTube. So at some point between now and September 1st, you will get a link to this video from Marty. He had just mentioned. Someone asked, how can I encourage my husband to get out of bed in the morning? Typically, he likes to have meals in bed or else he won't eat. And saying, could I use your help? Doesn't work. Oh, okay. So, depends on the day. Sometimes we worry too much about things because we think they need to. For example, does he need to get out of bed right away? Is it a big deal that he eats breakfast in bed in the morning? Is it a problem for him or is it a problem for us? So sometimes we create stress and problems that maybe they don't need to be. Maybe we just need to change our perspective on it. Well, what's wrong with him eating in bed? Um, and or for example, the example I gave before about a shadow in the room. Well, somebody that gets out of bed some mornings just fine, and then some mornings they don't want to get out of bed, and we are wondering what the heck is wrong. It's the dementia, but then we find out, oh, the days we open the blinds cast a shadow, and that shadow looks like a hole in the ground to them, like their brain is not able to interpret it, that those are the days they don't want to get out of bed. So like I mentioned before, we have to play detective. So we either have to change our perspective and say, this is not that big a deal. I'm gonna let it go. They can eat
and,
breakfast in bed.
and is this question dementia related, or do you just have an obstinate husband that you don't want to serve? I'm just kidding. Sorry about that. I had to throw that in.
You had to
Sorry.
ask, right? Right? Just to clear it
Yes.
up.
This may be a question for your marital counselor. I'm sorry.
Okay, someone asked, how do you differentiate between cognitive decline, impairment versus dementia? So dementia is the cognitive decline, right? And impairment, it could be the beginning stages. Dementia is not a diagnosis. The diagnosis is the Alzheimer's or the Lewy body or vascular or Parkinson's. Those are the diagnosis. So I did give another presentation before. So when you get the link to this presentation, if you want to know a little bit more about that, the presentation I did before was, is it dementia? And you can watch that YouTube video. So there I have some little evaluation tools too, like animal fluency and trail making, where you can do these things with your the person with dementia and get a baseline, see where they're at, and then over time keep doing the same evaluation to see if there's a decline. But Cognitive decline and impairment also isn't always a dementia, like we mentioned before. Is it a UTI? Um, is it lack of sleep? Is it stress? Is it depression? Is it drug interactions? So it's important to understand, is this cognitive decline sudden? Is it something else? Is it medically related? Is it a stroke? Or is it a dementia where we actually see the gradual progression of it and it keeps getting worse? Can an operation cause permanent memory loss, or is that dementia? I really don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question. That would be something you would have to ask to a doctor as far as would that be considered. I would say since dementia is a disease, maybe not. That's my guess because dementia is a disease. Although I will say that Muhammad Ali, what did he do for a living? He was a boxer. He died of Parkinson's disease. He had repeated hits to the head, concussions. So that type of thing can cause a dementia later in life. But as far as an operation and permanent memory loss, I'm not sure
I've,
if that
can
would
I
be
add,
considered dementia. Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
there's been in several of the webinars that we've done on dementia, there's been some talk about anesthesia and its effect on memory loss. And so you really would want to really ask your doctor and check on that, because that's been something that that's been brought up by some of our speakers in the past in regards to anesthesia. And I'll just throw that in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then that's possible. I mean, if you look at the side effects of anesthesia for somebody who doesn't have dementia, and then consider those same side effects on somebody who has a brain that has a disease, it's not, I feel like it's not unusual if that would exacerbate the dementia, if it can impact somebody's that doesn't have dementia. So I guess I'm going to go one last question. If an older adult no longer wants to leave their room, stay in bed, what's wrong to let them stay in bed and bring them meals, refuses to sit in the living room? Um, again, maybe it's strategy. Maybe obviously you want the person to move if they're able to move. Um, sometimes it's the way we interact with them and they don't want to cooperate with us because they see us, if we have multiple negative um interactions with them, and it may not be like a blowout fight. It could just be maybe we're talking to them like they're a child or making them feel stupid, and we don't intend that, but we're tired, and we kind of, especially if they're family, right? They're family, and we still think of them of the way that they were, and we still want to treat them with the way that they were. It's not really working out now that they have dementia, right? So sometimes a change in strategy and how we interact with them can be helpful, and how we present things to them, as opposed to, like I said, leading with a task. Is it always, okay, come on, you need to get out of bed, you need to eat, you need to take a shower, you need to do this? I mean, nobody likes being told what to do. My teenagers react the same way because they don't have a fully developed frontal lobe. So I have to be mindful in how I approach them as well, because I know that I don't like being someone coming up to me and telling me what to do all the time. Um, so yes, so
Very,
I think I have answered all of the questions.
very, very, very good. Isabel, thank you so much. It was just very, very, very impressive. Great job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. We surely appreciate you all joining us. I will have the follow-up email out this afternoon. I will also include, I'm going to include several things, but the link to the webinar recording that Isabel just referred to for the last webinar she did for us. That webinar is on our YouTube channel, but I don't think the second follow-up email had gone out with that link with it yet, but I'll still include that link with this follow-up in case you want to refer back to that. Thank you all for joining us. Please help spread the word, not only about the videos, but also about the future topics that we have coming up. And don't forget to take the survey, please. And please know that's mandatory for your CEUs, but it also is the follow-up survey to the survey that Isabel posted as a pre-webinar survey. Thanks, and y'all have a wonderful day. Isabel, thank you again. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you for having me back. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.